From the trade of Alex Barron being the biggest disappointment for Dallas Cowboys to how the Saints gave up all they could for Williams, here are some of the worst NFL trades in NFL history. This first one is technically not on the player. It's about Steve Young.
In trouble, he's going to be sacked. No, gets away. He runs, gets away again to the 35, to the 20, the 15, the 10.
It's not always the man who is to blame for a losing effort, but rather the whole team. The same can be said about Steve Young, who went 3-16 as a starter with the Buccaneers throughout his 2 seasons under center. Young threw 21 interceptions to go along with 11 touchdown passes. 2 years later, the Buccaneers had given up on Young and sent him to the 49ers for a 4th and 6th round selection. While he had to sit behind Joe Montana for a time, he eventually got his shot with the 49ers and became a Hall of Fame quarterback. Now that's when he led his team to 2 Super Bowl victories. That would be like giving away a Hall of Fame quarterback for a 4th and 6th round pick. Up next is about the one time the Saints did all they could to get their hands on Williams.
After the catch, Ricky Williams explodes down the sideline. Williams, a foot race, and brought down from behind.
The 1999 NFL Draft saw the New Orleans Saints looking to get a new running back. The legendary running back prospect Ricky Williams captivated their hearts. When it came to signing Williams, the Saints were determined to spare no expense. And hey, while being proactive in pursuing a goal is crucial, it is just as critical not to overpay, right? Would you be willing to pay millions for a McDonald's meal just because you have a strong craving for it? No, right? Well, that's what the Saints should have done as well. Think their decision through before they put all their chips in. But unfortunately, that's not what they did. The Saints didn't balance these two ideals as they handed up an unbelievable package to move up in the draft to choose Williams. They traded 2 first-rounders, a 2nd-rounder, and 2 third-rounders to Washington. Up next, let's go over the sad Alex trade. Yep, I'm talking about the 2010 Barron trade. What might have been a happy ending turns out to be a tragic tale of potential that was never achieved.
I think he said 71. I'm not sure.
Alex Barron tackled him.
So here's how it went down. The Cowboys sent linebacker Bobby Carpenter to the St. Louis Rams in exchange for lineman Alex Barron back in May 2010. Barron was exceedingly inconsistent and had been benched for disciplinary reasons in a 2009 loss to the San Francisco 49ers. But Jones still seemed to think it was a smart idea to trade for him. The 2005 NFL Draft saw Florida State University's product go to the NFL at number 19. The Rams used him in 74 of their 76 games. There were so many infractions of false starts and holding rules, which led to St. Louisans being super irritated. Come to think of it, it's possible that Dallas thought that by getting rid of a man who wasn't doing enough, the person they were receiving in exchange couldn't be all that much worse. But where did Alex mess up? Well, when playing for the Cowboys for the first time, he was penalized for holding on to what would have been the game-winning score against the Washington Redskins. Tony Romo's beautiful throw to Roy Williams, which would have set up a come-from-behind victory against a divisional opponent, was intercepted and wiped out.
Romo under pressure. They nearly got him, and then he hits Williams, but there's a flag down at the 20-yard line. There's a marker.
His last game with the team was also his only one that year. Barron never played in another NFL game after Dallas released him before the next season. Ouch. Up next is the Chicago Bears trade-off Mitchell that was equally disappointing.
He now will run it. And lots of running room inside the 10, sniffing the end zone. He's just short.
At the 2018 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears made a surprising move by trading up one place to pick Mitchell Trubisky. At the time, trading up for Trubisky didn't seem essential, and so this move was seen as a stretch. Now here's the kicker. Did you know that 4 draft choices were given up by the Bears in order to make the deal? Yikes! And that's not even the most disappointing part. More problematic than the transaction itself was the quarterback they passed up in favor of Trubisky. The Bears made a terrible move by trading him away, considering elite quarterbacks Patrick Mahomes and Deshaun Watson were both taken after him. So you see, maybe a little more critical thinking could have helped them. And while this next one was a horrible decision, the team would have you believe that they just had to do it. It's the John Elway trade. Without a doubt, this was one of the worst NFL deals ever from Indy's point of view, and they were pretty adamant about the fact that they didn't have much of a choice. John Elway was picked by the Colts, but he turned them down because he didn't want to play under coach Frank Kush. He instead informed them he was going to try out for the New York Yankees baseball club. The Colts had no choice but to trade Elway to the Broncos, and the move has clearly paid off for Denver. Even worse for the Colts is that they gained nothing of substance in exchange for this transaction. Imagine how helpless they must have felt. Both Mark Herman at quarterback and Ron Solt, who the Colts picked with their additional draft selection after the trade, turned out to be busts. Yikes! Chris Hinton may have been a 7-time Pro Bowler, but he pales compared to what Elway would bring to Denver. Don't you agree? I really think he could have done wonders. Maybe it just wasn't meant to be. This next trade is one that was famous all over the world for how bad it was. It's the Herschel Walker trade. It's understandable that many teams would want to get Herschel Walker.
For 10. Herschel Walker takes the toss, breaking tackles, out past the 40 to the 47-yard line, running over people like a...
But the Vikings did not benefit from the historic deal they made with the Cowboys in 1989. The Vikings, who believed they could win the Super Bowl with Walker, felt it made perfect sense at the time. One of the most one-sided deals in NFL history, this trade had no winners. Even though he spent 2.5 seasons with the Vikings, Walker was never able to carry for 1,000 yards. Plus, the squad did not have any postseason success while Walker was on the roster. But the Cowboys were able to get more draft selections and utilize them to get future Super Bowl champions like Emmitt Smith, Russell Maryland, and Darren Woodson, even though, at the time, the Vikings believed they had come out on top in the exchange. All in all, it was a huge disaster, and this final trade was not really a bad decision, but it still led to a tragic end. It's Robert Griffin III's trade.
Moved into the slot. Dupree was coming. RG3's going. And Robert Griffin III at the middle of the field and cutting to the out 36-yard line. Gains 40.
Now, this is easily one of the saddest trades out there. I'm pretty sure no one from the authorities who decided to bring him in would have ever predicted something like this would happen. But wait, what happened? The Redskins traded 3 first-round picks and a second-round choice to the Rams for quarterback Sam Bradford, despite having their sights set on Heisman Trophy winner Griffin III. Unfortunately for Washington, RG3's career has been on the decline ever since he injured his knee toward the end of his first season. And so, the deal that the world thought was easily one of the greatest out there turned out to be the worst. We gotta give it to them for making the right decision. But hey, sometimes some things are just not meant to be. And this was one of them. And those, y'all, were some of the worst trades in NFL history.